Hi, Legal Advice is here. I'm a lawyer that primarily works in the field of maritime and admiralty law. Today, we need to talk about the experimental submersible exploratory vessel Titan that's gone missing on its journey to the bottom of the sea to investigate the wreckage of the Titanic. Frankly speaking, if time has not yet run out for the 5 people on board the Titan, it will very, very shortly. At this point, it's virtually certain that it's a recovery operation, not a rescue. I sincerely hope that through some miracle I'm proven wrong on this, but that's where we stand. The weather was particularly bad at the time of the launch on 18 June, but it's unknown whether the weather had any effect on the submersible going missing or not. The surface lost contact with the Titan about an hour and 45 minutes into the descent. The descent takes approximately 2 to 2.5 hours. And communications were handled via text message rather than audio because the owner reportedly didn't like to be interrupted by audio communications while he was doing his thing at the Titanic site. There's no regulation on this type of adventure in the open seas. So what can we know about the company and the submersible Titan itself? Well, just a very little bit about the company. The CEO has previously said that he did not want ex-military submariners who were a bunch of 50-year-old white guys. He wanted a younger team that was inspirational and would inspire a young generation, 16-year-olds. He tried to get younger individuals from various backgrounds, such as aviation industries. There's literally employees that were hammer throwers in college and surfers. But on the Titan itself, on this voyage, there was very little or no subject matter expertise on the crew. The Titan has been described by various sources as a Mickey Mouse operation, an absolute death trap. People actually have to sign waivers stating that they know they might die. And the vehicle itself is about the size of a minivan. There's no chairs, no benches, no seats inside. So literally people are sitting on the floor, sitting cross-legged, kneeling for the 2 to 2.5 hours it takes to go down to the wreck, during their viewing of the wreck, and during the return to the surface, which under normal circumstances takes about 10 hours. However, the passengers, the crew on this submersible now have been in that position, sitting down or kneeling down for days now. There's only one toilet on board, and when you've got 5 people over the course of days, it's going to start to smell awful. We don't know what the capacity of the toilets are. There's only one hatch in this vessel, and it's bolted from the outside by 17 bolts. The only way someone gets into that submersible is from the outside. The only way someone on the inside of the submersible gets out is if someone on the outside unbolts it and lets them out. Now, this Titan is an experimental vessel. It's not certified or approved by any regulatory body. And about the voyage itself, the wreck of the Titanic sits at about 3,800 meters. That's about 2.5 miles under the surface of the ocean. Now, assuming that the submersible Titan is resting on the seabed somewhere near the Titanic, it's well beyond the reach of any submarine rescue range. The deepest rescue that was ever achieved was at 1,575 meters in 1973, and the Titanic is submerged approximately 10 times deeper than that. Now, I do a show every Monday called Maritime Monday, where we talk about maritime issues and maritime disasters. We've previously talked about the Soviet submarine Kursk. There have been other submarine accidents in only a few hundred meters of water where there were no survivors. Well, people are holding on to this idea that there's 70 to 96 hours of oxygen on board. That is only an estimate based on the owner OceanGate's own calculations and statements. The amount of oxygen there actually is unknown. And how that's used depends on many, many variables. And for example, the quality of the air filtration system. What's their capacity? Have they become saturated? Is there carbon dioxide buildup? We don't know. And if people are panicking, they're going to consume the oxygen faster. And conversely, if one or more of the crewmen predecease the others, that would increase the amount of available oxygen for others. Now, there's nothing that the people can really do to improve this situation. They can only sit and hope they're rescued and hang on as long as they can, presuming they're still alive. So what may have occurred, we just don't know. There may have been a structural malfunction. I mean, the Titan may have just had some sort of issue that resulted in it being crushed by the pressure of being that far below the surface of the ocean. There may have been some sort of loss of maneuverability. Now remember, it's essentially just an empty cylinder with some technical equipment and is guided and operated by a wireless PlayStation joystick. That's true. I'm serious. It's operated by a PlayStation joystick for maneuvering. There may have been a power failure. If there was an all across the board power failure, I believe they would have frozen a long time ago in those temperatures at that depth. They may just be alive and slowly suffocating on the bottom of the ocean. They may have surfaced, but because there's no exit from inside, they could be on the surface suffocating and hoping that someone finds them, the little needle bobbing in the haystack of the ocean, and rescues them. So the search is ongoing. There's United States naval vessels, there's United Nations vessels and aircraft that are involved in the search. And for the military, submarine hunting is a specialty. So they're going to be using the most sophisticated equipment, and it's going to boil down to sonar and listening for sounds. And there's a couple of recent articles about the developments that have occurred during the search. I want to quickly address those. This is a CNN article. It says a submersible carrying 5 people to see the remains of the Titanic at the bottom of the North Atlantic Ocean is still missing despite a massive search operation. But banging sounds were reportedly heard in the area. This was yesterday. Canadian P-3 aircraft detected underwater noises on Tuesday, but the U.S. Coast Guard was unable to identify the source of the sound, the agency said. Again, people are latching onto saying, oh, they heard banging sounds. They're there. They're alive. It could be anything under the ocean. It could be other submarines. It could be other vessels in the area. It could be some of the search vessels themselves. We don't know what these noises are. But meanwhile, an internal government memo Tuesday said search teams had heard banging sounds in 30-minute intervals, and a later update said acoustic feedback had indicated continued hope of survivors. So the fact that they are at 30-minute intervals, one, that tells me they may be, if it is coming from the submersible, they may be losing strength and are only have the energy, or they're conserving oxygen and only banging every 30 minutes. So the continued hope for survivors, it's a very, very small hope, but it's still a hope. CNN has reached out to OceanGate, the U.S. Coast Guard in Boston, and Canadian authorities for comment. Rolling Stone was the first to report the news Tuesday night. The Titan submersible had been on its way to the famous wreckage off the coast of St. John's, Newfoundland in Canada, when it lost contact with the support ship, leaving the people on board with only enough oxygen for a few days. As I said, it takes 2 to 2.5 hours for the vessel to go to the wreck of the Titanic from the surface, and they lost communications about 1 hour and 45 minutes into it. So they were presumably close to the wreckage and close to the bottom when they lost contact. So here's what we know so far. How did they go missing? The submersible was part of an 8-day journey conducted by OceanGate Expeditions at a price of $250,000 per person. The trip is based out of Newfoundland, with participants first traveling 400 nautical miles to the wreck site, which is about 900 miles or 1,450 kilometers off the coast of Cape Cod, Massachusetts. The submersible began its 2-hour descent to the wreck on Sunday, June 18th. It lost contact with the Polar Prince, the support ship that transported the vessel to the site, 1 hour and 45 minutes into its descent, officials said. Search operations began later that day. It's not clear what happened to the submersible, why it lost contact, and how close to the Titanic it was when it went missing. That's the important thing. We don't know what happened, why it happened, or even where it is. So everything we're hearing about this is speculation at this point. The search is underway for missing Titanic submersible, with 5 people aboard who went missing during an expedition to the wreckage of the Titanic. Who's on board? While authorities have not released the names of the 5 missing people, British businessman Hamish Harding, who's an explorer that holds world records, French diver Paul-Henri Narjolet, I have no idea if I'm correctly pronouncing that or not, and a Pakistani billionaire, Mr. Dawood, and his son, who's reportedly a teenager, have all been confirmed to be on board. The fifth person is OceanGate CEO and founder Stockton Rush, according to a source with knowledge of the mission plan. OceanGate did not respond to CNN's request for comment. Yeah, they're probably busy right now. Harding is based in the United Arab Emirates and is the chairman of the aircraft brokerage Action Aviation. The company said on social media that Harding was on board the submersible. Harding himself had posted online on Saturday saying he was proud to announce his participation in the dive to the Titanic. Harding is an avid adventurer, having traveled to space on board the Blue Origin flight last year and to the Challenger Deep in the Pacific Ocean, believed to be the deepest point in the world. He had posted on Saturday that Narjolet was scheduled to be on the submersible with him. Narjolet's family confirmed to CNN affiliate that he was on board the vessel, and the diver has decades of experience in exploring the Titanic. He serves as the director of underwater research at RMS Titanic, Inc., the company that had exclusive rights to salvage artifacts from the ship. Now, according to his biography and the company's website, Narjolet completed 35 dives to the Titanic wreck and supervised the recovery of 5,000 artifacts. The Pakistani father and son were also confirmed to be on board in a statement by their family. The Dawoods are a prominent Pakistani business family that runs some of the largest corporations in the country, with a portfolio spanning energy, petrochemicals, fertilizers, IT, and food and culture. There's a shot of the submersible itself. So how much time do they have? Again, it's designed to carry 96 hours of oxygen, but we don't know if that's accurate. And by 1 p.m. Tuesday, the Coast Guard said it's likely about 40 hours were left. We're nearly 24 hours away from that. So the window is closing, regardless of how much additional oxygen they had. So the authorities give until around early Thursday to locate and retrieve the vessel. There are a number of challenges, including the remote location, local weather conditions, the state of the submersible, and the extraordinary depth of the ocean in the area they went missing. The deepest underwater rescue was that of Robert, which we talked about a bit ago, of Roger Chapman and Roger Mallinson, who were rescued from the Pisces 3 submersible at a depth of 1,575 meters. I'm sorry, I meant to say feet. 1,575 feet in 1973. They were trapped for 76 hours before finally being hauled to the surface. Again, the wreckage of the Titanic is much deeper, nearly 10 times deeper, sitting at 13,000 feet below sea level. It's not clear how deep the submersible is. Some experts have pointed out that it might be near the surface, since submersibles typically are able to shed weight for additional buoyancy. But even if they reach the surface, as I was talking about a minute ago, the door is bolted from the outside, meaning they still risk running out of oxygen unless they're located by rescuers. So here's a diagram of what's going on and how far below the ocean it is. And you talk a little bit more about what's going on inside of it, which we talked about. There's only one toilet, no seats, passengers sit cross-legged on the floor, no windows except the one porthole in the bow, which passengers view the Titanic through. Like here's a picture from the inside of the bow from an earlier expedition. There's no GPS underwater. The submersible is only guided by text messages from the ship on the surface. We talked about that. But the communications broke down during a dive, and the submersible was lost for over 2 hours. This was on a previous trip. A previous trip that went down, they also lost communication. So they knew this was an issue. It was an issue they didn't resolve. The pilot steers the sub using a video game controller, but if that fails, a hardwired system can control the propellers, according to Aaron Newman, who took the dive on the Titan in 2021 and is now an OceanGate investor. Thrusters are powered by an external electrical system. So if the electrical system goes down, the thrusters are gone, while an internal system powers communications and a heater, he said. Multiple agencies from both the U.S. and Canada are involved in the search, looking both on the surface and underwater. More than 10,000 square miles have been searched as of Tuesday. Boats, aircraft, and radar equipment are scanning above the water in case the submersible had surfaced. Sonar buoys and sonar equipment on ships are also being used to detect sounds below the water. The U.S. Coast Guard, U.S. Navy, U.S. Air Force, Canadian Coast Guard, and Canadian military are all coordinating the search and potential rescue operations. France has also sent a research ship equipped with an underwater robot to join the search. Deep-sea map-making company Magellan, most famously known for its one-of-a-kind deep-sea imagery of the Titanic, is also working to get its equipment to the site. But finding the submersible is just the first step. Exactly. Once you find it, then what do? How do you rescue it? Rescuing it could be a whole other challenge, as they're saying here. Depending where and at what depth the submersible is found, there could be limited options for rescue vessels. For instance, the U.S. Navy's nuclear-powered submarines usually operate at 800 feet or less, meaning they can't dive down to the ocean floor, where water pressure on the submarine hull could make it implode. During the 1973 rescue, authorities used other submersibles and a remotely operated Navy-developed recovery vessel to attach lines to the Pisces 3, which were then used to pull it back to the surface. It's not clear whether these methods could work for the Titan, given the uncertainty around its location. There's been previous safety concerns. The incident has prompted discussion around the safety of deep-sea tourism, with some pointing out that OceanGate has come under criticism before. Two former OceanGate employees separately brought up similar safety concerns about the thickness of the hull. The thickness of the hull, as I understand it, is 5 inches of carbon fiber. When they were employed at the company a few years ago, a statement from a research lab also appears to show conflicting information. This is interesting. Show conflicting information about the engineering and testing that went into the development of the vessel. OceanGate's legal representative boasted the Titan's unparalleled safety features in a 2021 court filing, saying it had been built with the University of Washington's Applied Physics Laboratory. But the university said the lab had never dealt with the design, engineering, or testing of the Titan. That is a big conflict. Industry leaders also expressed concern 5 years ago about the company's experimental approach to the Titan submersible and its trip to the Titanic, the New York Times reported Tuesday. The Manned Underwater Vehicles Committee of the Marine Technology Society said it penned a letter to Rush, the missing CEO, in 2018. The group warned of potential negative outcomes from minor to catastrophic that would have serious consequences for everyone in the industry, said the letter obtained by the Times. OceanGate has not responded to a request for comments on the letter or on the two former employees' claims. Now, there's another article that I believe is a little more recent that addresses some of the sounds that have been heard and some of the other ongoing discussions that have been had. Let's quickly take a look at that here. Bring that on up. Sonar picked up, again, the CNN, picked up banging sounds on Tuesday from underneath the water in the North Atlantic Ocean while searching for a submersible with 5 people on board that went missing 2 days earlier on a dive to the Titanic wreckage, according to an internal U.S. government memo on the search. Crews detected banging sounds every 30 minutes, and 4 hours later, after additional sonar devices were deployed, the banging was still heard, according to the memo. It was unclear when on Tuesday the banging was heard or for how long, based on the memo obtained by CNN. Additional acoustic feedback was heard and will assist in vectoring surface assets and also indicating continued hope of survivors. A later update reads, a Canadian P-3 aircraft also located a white rectangular object in the water, according to that update, but another ship set to investigate was diverted to help research the acoustic feedback instead, according to that update. So they saw something rectangular and white in the water and they were going to check it out, but then they heard this banging, and so they diverted the search ship to go check out this feedback. The U.S. Coast Guard said underwater noises were detected by a Canadian P-3 aircraft, prompting the relocation of resources to explore their origin, but searches have yielded negative results. And they're going to use some of the data from the P-3 aircraft to consider when they do their further future search plans. OceanGate told CNN they have no information to share on this when reached for comment. CNN also reached out to Canadian authorities for comment. The report comes amid a multinational race against time to find the submersible and its 5 passengers before their oxygen runs out. More ships and aircraft have joined the mission on the 3rd day. A spokesperson for the U.S. Navy said the military branch is sending subject matter experts and a flyaway deep ocean salvage system to help in the rescue mission for the commercial submersible, which disappeared Sunday morning. Right now, this thing has just over 30 hours of oxygen left, and this was a couple of hours ago. The system has the capacity to lift and recover large, bulky, and heavy undersea objects like the small submersible. But they have to find it first. It's only 21 feet. They're looking for a 21-foot cylinder somewhere in the ocean. The submersible known as Titan was carrying 1 pilot and 4 mission specialists. And I like how they put the mission specialists in quotes. It's a rich guy, his son, the CEO, and an adventurer, basically. I mean, not to downplay them or their lives in any way. They're just not really mission specialists. Titan is roughly the size of a minivan and is equipped with repurposed everyday items, including a video game controller used to steer. They've emphasized the importance in using sonar equipment to listen for sounds underwater. The submersible is going to make sounds itself with the systems on board. The crew hopefully are making noises as well, retired Captain Bob Sholey, a former U.S. Navy diver, told CNN Monday. Those sonar buoys are picking up. They're very good, and they're detecting these noises. Titan's operator, Ocean Gate Expedition, said the vessel begins each trip with 96 hours of life support. That is a short amount of time, said Sholey. The hard part is finding the submersible. And once they find the submersible, there are all sorts of situations of how to get that submersible to the surface and rescue the crew. They're saying they're doing everything possible as part of a complex search effort, but so far has not yielded any results. The unique and challenging search has brought together our nation's best experts. They estimate the vessel was down to 40 hours of oxygen. Officials don't know whether that's enough time. What I will tell you is we will do everything in our power to effect a rescue, he said in response to a question about the oxygen time limit. And again, they talk again about the complexities of doing such a rescue operation. Highly engineered carbon fiber and titanium hull weighs 23,000 pounds. They've been scouring the below the surface level, about the size of Connecticut. 900 miles east of Cape Cod, 13,000 feet deep. Some things we've already talked about. And officials involved in the search have not publicly named those on board, but we know who they are from reading the last episode. I mean, the last news article. And according to an archived version of the company's website, the journey to the ocean floor comes with a price of $250,000. And there's more concern about the experimental approach. This is, again, they talked about how they said that it was done with the University of Washington. University of Washington said we didn't have anything to do with it. Well, there's also and we've talked about on the Maritime Monday show, classification societies. They are the ones who investigate ships, they inspect every single inch of a ship to make sure it's safe, to make sure it complies with regulations, to make sure it's not going to pose a danger to the vessel itself, the people on board, the environment, or anyone else through any insufficiencies. And DNVGL is one of the larger classification societies. It was formed several years ago by merging Das Norsk Veritas, I believe is what the D stands for. Das Norsk, the Norwegian classification city, and Germanischer Lloyd, who is the German classification society. So they merged together and formed DNVGL. Highly reputable classification society. So they're the ones that are specifically, the letter expressed concern over the company's compliance with a maritime risk assessment certification known as DNVGL. That's the company's name there. Your marketing material advertises that the Titan design will meet or exceed the DNVGL safety standards. Yet, it does not appear that OceanGate has the intention of following DNVGL's class rules. The letter says, your representation is at minimum misleading to the public and breaches an industry-wide professional code of conduct we all endeavor to uphold. So that's people saying, look, you're not following the classification society's rules. So, and you apparently haven't had an inspection done by them. So how can you say it meets or exceeds their standards? OceanGate didn't respond. And then we go through the people in the community that are expressing their concerns and a little bit more about them. And it didn't resurface. That's why we're searching for it. They lost the communications. They waited the time. And at the 10-hour mark, it hadn't resurfaced. So that triggered the search. Dive takes about 10 hours from start to finish, including the 2.5 hours it takes to reach the bottom. The company calls itself its clients mission specialists. Again, yes, the clients are the mission specialists who are trained as crew members in a variety of different roles, including communicating with topside, taking sonar scans, and opening and closing the vessel's dome. Clients do not need previous maritime experience to join as mission specialists. Just, I mean, this offends me a little bit, and this isn't. I don't want to get into rage mode or anything like that here, but this offends me a bit. You are calling these people mission specialists when they don't have to have any experience whatsoever. What kind of specialist has no experience in what you're doing? I find that kind of disturbing and a little bit appalling. Okay, a lot appalling. Basic emergency medical supplies. It's a sad situation. They're continuing the rescue efforts, and hopefully, against all odds, something good can come out of this. But the window's closing, and frankly, it's not looking good. Now, we're just going to wait and see what happens. We're going to have to go through this. But what I can tell you is that next Monday, on the Maritime Monday show that we do, check YouTube. If you subscribe to the video and hit the notification, you'll be notified of the next Maritime Monday. It takes place usually Monday morning U.S. time. We're going to be talking about this, and I'm going to be having on a special guest, a very dear friend of mine who was involved in a submarine accident, and he's going to talk to us a little bit about what might be going on inside, what some of the safety issues are, some of the safety concerns, and also tell a bit about his experience involved in when he was involved in the submarine accident that could have been deadly. So we'll update you again on Monday. By then, we will essentially know whether they're alive or not, if they were rescued or not. So it's a sad deadline, but it's one that's got to be met. So join me on Maritime Monday for another look at this, as well as other submarine accidents. Until then, take care. Please like the video. Please subscribe down below, and join us for legal issues, for legal analysis, for some entertainment news, and some maritime and admiralty breakdowns as well. Thank you. I'm Legal Vices. See you next time. Thank you.